Um, Welcome to OSCA Ado-Ekiti Meetup, a workshop on building a docs as code system with GitHub. And today we'll be learning about how to build documentations. Open source. There is this discussion about these talks about contributing to open source through documentations, and then so moving from that, you can even let's move into the aspect of building that documentation as a contribution itself, and not just contributing to documentation alone. Learning how to build documentation, knowing the in and out, every details of it. So that over to you. And so yeah, so in here we'll be having Lisha Li. She's a senior technical writer at Unity Technology, and she will be the one to put us through the whole process. So over to you, Lisha.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for coming to the workshop today. So I'm going to talking about building a docs as code system with GitHub. I will talk about a little bit about me. Oh, sorry. Okay, and again. So I'm living in Vancouver, Canada. So it's far from you guys. I have more than 13 years experience of writing end user and developer documentations. I have been working on various high-tech companies before I joined Unity. I have experience with documentation infrastructure design. So I'm not only writing documentation, I also build a documentation system. When you're working on a small company, you probably, like the documentation team, have to build their own documentation system. So I built a data XML and also built a Confluence documentation system. Also, in my previous company, I built a docs as a code documentation system. That's why I gained the experience. So I'm going to talk about that today. So today I'm going to talk about what is docs as code and why you should use docs as code, and how to manage the doc, write and build the documentation, and the tools you use for writing documentation, and how would you test the doc, and the CSD pipeline to automate all that. And I will give you a real world example I built for one of the company I worked, and I will show a demo doc as code repo I built. So first, what is docs as code? Docs as code is an approach or system that you create and maintain your documentation using the same tools as you would with your programming code, which means you will test, you will automate the test, you will automate the build and push. If you have any question, you can jump to ask. So I want to ask you, is anybody know about docs code before and used before, or you're all new to this?
I think almost every one of us is actually new to docs as code.
Okay, that's good to know. So why docs as code? Because it keeps your documentation in sync with your code. And if you're a developer, you probably know, when you do the coding, you use some tools. And this is using the same tool for your documentation. To do the review, if you're using like a Git repo, you will use a pull request, and you will do the review, comment, all the same as you review your code. And that will allow writers and developers can work together. Like in the traditional way, writers have their own tool. like RoboHelp or Medcat Player or whatever the tool, and you have to pay for it. And only writers have the tool. But with dog code, we use GitHub, we use Markdown, that kind of thing. So it's all the same. And if you're a developer, you probably know once you finish your coding, you will run unit test, all that kind of test your code. And with Docker as code, we will do the same. We will automatic testing, building, and push. So first, traditional way you will use Word or other writing tools to write documentation. But without code, you will manage your documentation use a source control system, a Git, like a GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab. Is everybody familiar with GitHub?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Then I won't say too much. And you use GitHub you write documentation in plain text markup and build the output with a static set generator. So the markup language, usually there's three very popular one. Markdown, very popular. Everybody knows Markdown, right? I would assume.
Yeah, most of us.
Okay, that's good. And there are other like restructured text or ASCII doc. I have experience with Markdown and restructured text. I haven't used ASCII doc, but ASCII doc is something new and it's simple. It's getting really popular these days. And for the restructured text, if you're working on a Python environment, your product is building using Python, you probably should choose restructured text because it's work really well with Python, and it uses static set generator called Finks to build. That's work well. But if you are using Markdown, there are lots of static set generator. Almost all the static set generator support Markdown. I include a link here. You open the link. So this is a site lists all the static set generators. It probably have 100 of them. And those are very popular, like Jekyll, Google, Gatsby, and Actual. Those are really popular. I use DocFacts here. This is I used for my work, my previous work, and all the demo. I use this because it's for C#. Like my previous company, the base language is C#, and DocFacts is created by Microsoft. Somebody from Microsoft at least. It's open source too, and also used by Microsoft. It can use to generate client API documentation from C# code. So let's go back to my presentation. Any question about this so far?
Yeah, not at all.
And because
No question. You can continue.
Okay, that's good. So if you are using like a markup language, Markdown, so there are a lot of tools. The most popular one is Visual Studio Code, which is also the one I really liked. It have a lot of extension you can use and you can preview. And another one is Atom. I haven't used, but it's pretty good, I heard. And if you are using Windows, you can use just Notepad++, which is really simple. And I also recommend online IDE tool called Gitpod, which with Gitpod is basically you do not have to set up everything or anything in your local. You can use use it. You can install this as a Chrome extension in the browser. Then you can, in your repo, it will show a button. You click it, you start workspace, like an online version of Visual Studio Code in your browser, and you can just work there. You can do all the Git thing. I will show you later. I set up GitHub in the demo repo. I can show you later. Yes. And I talked about the testing earlier. There are lots of tools, open source tools that you can use to test your documentation. So the most popular one, the linter for style and prose is WoW. WoW, you can set up style guide. For example, like when you write documentation, you want to have a style guide. You could use some style guide from Microsoft Style Guide or Google Style Guide. And it has been set up online. Like you can just download their style guide, and you can set up a wall to test your writing style against your documentation. For example, if if you're a writer, you probably know you should use active voice with passive voice, and also you can set up some terminology specific for your product. For example, GitHub, it's a term, right? And you can also use this to do spell check, like check spelling mistake or grammar mistake, all can be done automatically with WoW. And you can also use HTML checkers, at least a few checkers, HTML test or HTML proof or other checker, at least the 4 here, to check the link against the output. When you build documentation from Markdown to HTML, you want it to be checked for the broken link or alt text in the image, that kind of stuff. And if you include sample code in your documentation, you can set up some code linter to test your code to make sure the sample code you provide with your user is accurate. So next, I'm going to talk about DAO code CI/CD workflow. So this is the workflow I feel is very good workflow. It could be different. It's up to you to set a workflow. So this is the workflow I used when I work in the Docker as code approach. So first you will create a doc task branch, same as your code. You branch from your dev branch, and once document draft is done, you create a PR for documentation review, same as the code. Then it will trigger the CI/CD pipeline to test the source. If it's passed, you will do a build. It will build documentation. If the build is passed, then you will run another checker to test the HTML, looking for broken link or other thing. And then it can generate a preview, because source file is good, but if you want other people to review documentation, it's better to generate a preview. And if the review approved, like this has to be done by a human. Although you do the test, but what if the information provided is not accurate or other thing? It has to be reviewed by the SNE or other writers, that kind of thing, for accuracy. Then that is done, you will merge your release branch. You will merge your change to a release branch or your main branch. And it will trigger another pipeline, do another test, just make sure it's good. Then it will publish automatically to your documentation portal. Any question about this? Or do you all know what a CI/CD pipeline means? Good. Okay.
I think
So,
um
yeah,
I think most of them are not asking the question, but it's not everybody that understand what the pipeline means. So also you shared something about link checker. I think these are stuff that can be integrated into GitHub workflow, right?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I can show a demo later how it
Okay.
work.
Thank you.
So here, this is a company I worked before, and I built this. So this is all built by docs as code. So I use the big bucket, which is the company use, and I use docfacts as a static set generator to generate all this. And by default, the static set generator doesn't have a good template. It's basic, and I work with UX designer to design the interface. So this is all designed by HTML and CSS, and the client API is automatically generated, and we also have a REST API reference, which is used Redoc, another open source tool for the, and it follows the workflow I talked about earlier. When you do the merge to the pull request, it will trigger a testing and build. And the website is hosted in AWS S3 bucket for public side, like this site, and for preview, which means when I during my development, when I do a PR, the build is successful, it will publish document to a internal development website for preview. Continue. So now I'm going to show docs as code repo I built in GitHub, how it works. So this is just a personal project I built. It's not be used by anybody. It's just to showcase what is a workflow looks like. It's in GitHub. Use GitHub action to automate the workflow, and the source code is in Markdown. It's use WAL to do the style and grammar spell check, and use docfacts to build the developer guide, and also client and REST API reference. And once built done, it will use HTML checker called HTML test to check for broken links. I also set a Git pod, which is open source tool for documentation, editing, and preview. Git pod itself is IDE tool. It's not it's just for development. You can use by code, and I can use it for doc editing and preview. And I use GitHub page to host the documentation online. Okay. Now let's go to this website. So this is my Docker as code demo site. If you are interested, you can do a fork to play around later.
Yeah. I think the link will be shared with the community on our GitHub repo.
Yeah, so this is open to public. It's I personal build, but you can still use it. So so the Git pod is true. Like I installed in my browser a Git pod extension. Then I click, it will start up a workspace. And if you can install that in your locally, in your browser, and you can see that button, then you can just click this, then it will spin up a workspace for you, and you can just work on it. And I set up, once your environment is started, it will trigger a build.
I think, sorry, I think we have a question.
Actually, let me
So,
go through my development. Yeah, if you have a question, well, I'm building this, you can ask.
so the question is Gitpod free?
Yeah, it's free. It's open source.
Okay.
It have some paid feature, but in general, it's free.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I've already set up this. So like if you go to my GitHub repo right now, click that and fire up this. And I set up to, once I start my work, it will do a build. Just build the documentation automatically. And once the build is done, it will show up. Then I can look at the output, then I can work on this. So about my repo, I have a docs folder, which is some example documentation. This is actually from docfacts seed. I have some sample code. I have some sample like C# class, C# project file with some comments in there, and the docfacts will generate the kind API from the source. And I also have a Swagger specification file example, and docfacts will build this to the REST API reference. So I'm going to do a demo. Once the build is done, I will make some change, maybe make some grammar mistake, have a broken link to see what happens. So now the build is done. So this is this page, it show up here. Well, I make some change. For example, I just intentionally make some mistake just to show how the documentation is tested by the Docker flow. Let's delete a letter here to make this as a typo. And once I started the change, it will just rebuild and show the changes here. Okay, you see I deleted the N and it shows up here. So when I make change, it will show up here. So GitHub, this is all GitHub. It's really awesome tool. I just discovered recently. I really like it. And let's also make a broken link. So that's the link. Let's change the link to something like a long link. Okay, so I can do some testing locally. For example, I can start a wall. Do a local test. It will tell you, oh, one error in this file, which is okay. You can fix, if you work locally, you probably need to do this and fix. So now I'm not fixing it, just to show how it works in the repo. So I'm done. Then I will type in my change.
Okay, sorry. I think we also have another question. The question is, which static site generator are you using?
So I'm using docfacts.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Called docfacts. Okay, I commit my change. So for showcase this, I have two branch in my repo. One is called main, is for the public. So all for the release, and more is dive for development. So in real world, you probably need to branch from your div branch and work on it, merge to dev for all the features, then from dev merge to dev. So here I just make uh, make things simple. So I make change in my div. I will going to create a PR pull request from div to the main. So I make some change, my PR, probably you need in real world add some comment, what you have changed, what you have done, then you create a PR. Then you probably need to add some reviewer to review this, just the same as with your code. And once the PR is created, it will trigger the GitHub action to do the testing. So that's the action being triggered. It will first to install all the dependencies. So if you're a software developer, you need to install a lot of dependency. So here is install .fax, which is a side set generator, and it installed well. So once that is installed, it will install HTML test, install all the software I needed for test and build my documentation. Give some morning, but that's fun. So while it's building, if you have any questions, I can answer.
Okay, yeah. So now, looking at the demo we are using, does it require, like, some people are from the background of just writing documentation without having maybe more experience about HTML, CSS, and you made mention of building the interface alongside with HTML and CSS with the help of the UI UX designers.
Yeah. So by default, let me show this. So by default,
Yeah.
it's just me or
Yeah, I'm coming.
is everybody okay? Hello?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Is everything okay? Okay.
Yeah, everything is okay. I think that person is actually a spammer, so I've removed him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's continue. So this is a website. Do you heard a
Ye-
strange sound?
Yeah, that's like they joined via the meetup link that was shared on Twitter. So I think that's why they are spamming the session. Don't worry, I will handle everything.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So that's by default from docfax. So usually static set generator can by default when you install it have some template you can use. So this is just basic. Some set generator have a better template